Hey everyone. I know we got low energy today, but we got plow through it. Just some, just I don't know. It's a combination of current events and personal events happening in our lives, and it's like I said, we got plow through it like a true.
Mhm. Yep, like if you like for the stuff going on in the world, if you know, you know, and yep, that's why we're all just kind of like in a funk right now, pretty much. So, but we'll just try and work through it and cover what's going on in the entertainment world today. So,
Uh,
Brian, what's on our docket?
well, first off, how was your week?
Well, it was good. It was all right. Nothing too eventful, which is sometimes nice. Pretty chill. How I like them.
Uh,
How about you?
I did my job mostly. Had my first double shift in a while, which I haven't done in ages, but especially working in theater. I forgot, previously when I was working as a in theater, it was mostly in the city. But since I now work somewhere more closer to where I live, it's much more easier for me to have a break between the time between say when show A ends and then show B begins. So I have like essentially I have like 3 hours or something like that. So I took the time to actually go out and actually go see the unbearable amount of massive talent. I think that's the name of the but it's basically the new Nicolas Cage movie, which was amazing to watch by the way because not only is it, it's it's amazing to watch because you think it would be like a caricature of how Nicolas Cage would be in terms of his acting, his personality, so forth and so on. Especially what it has essentially culminated with the culminated within the past like say 10 years. Especially with Cage being known to be so eccentric in his roles and stuff like that as well, right? Not necessarily. I mean, yes, there is a sense of eccentricity in his role in the movie because he is basically playing a parody version of himself. At the same time, they still add depth and character into this version of Nicolas Cage, where it goes, "Oh wow, I could actually understand why Nicolas Cage could be this so like eccentric and whatnot." And him and Pedro Pascal is just an amazing comedic duo. I honestly hope that Cage actually does come up somewhere in The Mandalorian sometime down the line because the two of them just have fantastic chemistry. Honestly, it's like the bromance was real in that movie, and you could just see it, and you could just see it probably during the what was it, the press junket as well. But yeah, uh, and yeah, I've been just enjoying my weekend, regardless. Well, my week before I go back to work, uh, and there's also another movie I want to watch this week that's coming out that we'll discuss a little while. So you may or may not know. It's a big movie, It's
You know what are talking about? What are talking about? It's coming from a real indie company here.
yeah, it's a very independent company. Horror director too. It's like it's going to be a very big horror movie as well. But yeah. Uh, but yeah. Speaking of blockbuster movies, we got to actually start talking about the first one. Breaking news. Well, not breaking news, but over the past week or so, or back actually past 2 weeks, Justin Lin, who was previously essentially one of the Fast and Furious directors for the past, like say, couple of movies, yeah, going on like say Fast, I believe either Fast Seven or yeah, I think it basically started with Fast Six or Fast Seven around that area, and then you know they didn't. He wasn't brought back for one of the other movies, and then they got James Wan, who was a fantastic director, who did one of the Fast and Furious movies, and then Lin kind of like came back in and then just basically said, hey, I could continue on doing this thing. And yeah, so basically what happened with Lin is that 1 week into production of Fast 10, or Fast X as they're calling it, he just stepped away as director. And that is not really, sorry, I'm just making sure my, all right. For some reason my camera wasn't, no, not in focus as well. And also my side is also bright, so let me do the right thing and make me not as blind like Two-Face like last week. The fun of recording. All right, so basically what happened was that Justin Lin, about a week into production, decides to say, hey, I can't really direct anymore. The official word is that he's having like creative not creative difficulties, but just creative differences with what the storyline is going forward with Fast X. And as of right now, outside of Jason Momoa starring as lead villain, we don't really know what the actual plot line is into this new Fast and Furious movie, which is supposedly going to be like the one that wraps up everything in terms of the series, but which I kind of doubt that, because this thing has been essentially making hundreds of millions of dollars, and then suddenly it's like, oh, we got like one more, we got one more in us. We should just make a grand finale, something like that. But I highly doubt that, especially since Fast and Furious has like a cartoon and video games and stuff like that too, and it's hard to say, hey, let's just stop while the going good. But yeah, basically, Lin decides to say he's just up and quits. But what came out recently, or just yesterday, was essentially one of the reasons why he quit was over difficulties with working with Vin Diesel, which, if you follow the franchise, this is really nothing new. Dwayne Johnson was famously saying he did not like working with Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel has been known to be something about difficult to work with. I mean, not like difficult to work with person, but just like he's been known to have difficult productions. Is a good word for saying that. Like he famously did not return to Triple X2 because he just did not want to return to that character, and then suddenly it's like, oh, they make Triple X3, and suddenly, oh, Xander Cage is miraculously alive, even though they were like, no, this guy's dead. They blow him up, and we confirm the kill is that, oh, this guy's dead, and they pick up his skin that has like his tattoo of his famous 3X thing. No, that means he's actually dead. Nope, that just means that it was like he was just claimed to be dead or something like that.
Mm-hmm. It was a really good look-alike. That's how we'll say it for the next movie, right? Yeah. They'll believe anything.
Yeah. And of course,
and actually, also, we can't forget too, like his little feud he had with Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yeah, and that was another thing too. This news that came out with Lin and saying and his difficulty with Vin Diesel actually came out on the birthday of Dwayne's on Dwayne's birthday. So people were like, so are we having to apologize to Dwayne now for saying that he was right and Vin was wrong? So it was like, he's like, how do we make up for this, Dwayne? Do we go see Black Adam later this summer or later this year?
I mean, to be honest, like I never blamed Dwayne at all for like leaving the Fast movies.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty clear anyway that like those two never really got along that much, because you barely see them actually interact with each other on screen after like I think the fifth movie, or even no, the fifth or sixth movie.
Yeah, basically after essentially the movie that, yeah, probably after the fifth movie, because I don't remember that much and them interacting aside from the ending really of Fast Six.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then
like, because early in the seventh movie, you get Jason Statham showing up and then putting his character essentially in prison.
yeah.
So then his character is separated from everyone else. And then they literally give Dwayne his own movie with Jason Statham, where they have to go and fight Idris Elba. And
Oh
then
yeah.
we see none of the original like Fast crew around there. So it's almost like they kind of understood that, yeah, Vin's gonna be a tricky guy to work with. Let's see if we can try and make something work around this with what we got.
Yeah, and I mean, which is weird because people have said that, oh, Vin Diesel's a great guy to work with, and I think, and we're just you know a guy who I guess they want to say you don't want to be on the wrong side with, because I think that's another thing is that Vin Diesel is also one of the lead producers for the Fast and Furious franchise since I believe probably going into the fifth film or fourth film, I forgot which, or probably even going back to probably starting with the fourth film or even before that, I forgot which one, but
Mm-hmm.
it's it's a common occurrence when there is an actor who has a difficulty working with the director, and the director decides to say, "Hey, I'm just gonna bow out," and just like, "Nope, I'm just done."
Mm-hmm.
And you know, as actors, I've been through that situation before, where an actress had to bow out of the production because she just wasn't feeling she just wasn't feeling at all with how she was receiving the role, and then decided to just like, I'm just gonna bow out and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And it's obviously harder for someone of say Lynn's caliber, where he's basically has given maybe 10 years or so of his career so forth just to direct maybe a couple of these movies,
Mm-hmm.
because not only is Lynn directing them, he's also probably going to be, doing a lot of production work as well. Going, storyboarding all this stuff too. It's like storyboarding, this scene, that scene, that scene, that scene, making sure this set piece is correct, making sure this set piece is, seems feasible.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a rough job as a director just to make sure, hey, uh, yeah, just to make sure, where to go next, especially. But hearing that, but yeah, but back to the story at hand, to why Lynn, Lynn left the project, according to various reports, or according to a report, he left the project because of Vin Diesel showing up to work late, not knowing his lines, and being a little out of shape, which you know I would, if I was a director, I would be like, say, hey, Ben, I know you're the star of the show, but, pull yourself together.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's, I know the pandemic has been a horrible thing, a horrible thing for the past couple of years, and obviously another factor is probably
But
Vin's,
also, didn't they make Fast Nine during the pandemic as well? Or
no,
like,
no, they made it before the pandemic, and then it got shuffled around because of the pandemic.
okay, I couldn't
Yeah.
remember if that was like, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So then yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we get it. The pandemic is, can be rough, but like you are gonna be expected because it's gonna be in a lot of these like, Hollywood contracts for stars that you are gonna have to be in a certain physical shape to. And it's like, hey, and that just is what it is with Hollywood, because they gotta think of like, whatever. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had to go and read what the actual thing was, but apparently, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Lynn's decision to quit was a spur of the moment decision driven by the differences of the script. So that's another thing. With Vin Diesel being essentially not only one of the lead actors but also one of the lead producers, he probably has final say of the script. And apparently, where Lin considered the script to be finished, Diesel and Universal apparently disagreed. Apparently, this came to a head where Diesel showed up on set with additional notes because, again, hey, as a producer, hey, I got some notes on the script. And it led to a shouting match that ended with a slam door. So basically, okay, so a part of this disagreement between Lin and Diesel, the story also hints at other issues with the production, including a key location that was cut due to the war in Ukraine. In addition, a key villain has reportedly yet to be casted, even though Charlize Theron is already confirmed to be returning. Lin also didn't take kindly to the studio sending another writer to polish up the dialogue. Yeah, I'm just like, apparently, when the production was paused, it was costing Universal essentially $100,000 per day just to keep it in production, while they go and figure out, we need a new director, and they do have a new director, Lewis. I forgot what his last name is, but he basically he's actually the director of The Incredible Hulk. Basically, one of the Marvel movies that isn't really canon, but at the same time is canon. At the same time, it has a weird place in Marvel MCU history, and we going forward, it's odd that. I mean, it's not odd, but it's almost like clockwork when you have a big series like this, and it's like a 10th film, right? And they haven't really figured out the story yet. It's like, okay, you have no idea what the story is. At this point, they're just hiring people just for the sake of hiring. As of right now, like I said before, Jason Momoa was casted as the lead villain. There's also Brie Larson as well, casted as another role. So it's like at this point, it's just like they're just essentially casting these people, and if they don't have a confirmed script, it's much more of a difficulty as a director to say, hey, this script I believe is good. We should just keep it right here. But no, when the lead actor and also one of the lead producers say, hey, no, I got other ideas for the script. That causes more friction between it, both as director and as actor, and also with the writer as well, because the writer is like, okay, the writer could even be like probably. Well, obviously the writer's job is to say, hey, here's a script, go have you whatnot, and it's like it's a fickle it's a fickle process to be a director and helming a big budgeted action movie like this, especially with how this series has essentially played out for the past, say, several movies. And also from when it's like, and of course, a lot of people have probably stated that this series should have ended with the untimely passing of Paul Walker. Let that series have closed with Bryan and Dominic Terrell just like driving away, and that would be the perfect ending to the series, that those two people just driving away. But no, it's like after that you get into this whole notion of, okay, then there's the cyber terrorist, and then there's the cyber terrorist again, who has Dominic's brother, who we never even heard about until this movie, because at that point it's like,
which is also ironic given how much Dom is about family, and
yeah,
we never see his own family ever until like Fast 9.
yeah, F9.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh yeah, his brother and also his mother too, I think, right?
No, it was like they talked about it, like his father was like some sort of like not NASCAR type of racing, but like essentially like one of those type of racers. Like he had like a racing track and stuff like that too. And him and his brother grew up with that, and that was the reason why Dominic really loved his love for racing and stuff like that too. But and then we get to find out it's like, oh, John Cena's playing his role. I'm like, first off, how the hell is that even possible when it's like you basically look at Vin Diesel and you basically look at John Cena, it's like it doesn't really add up at all. Like even me, I'm just like, I honestly don't see it.
Mm.
And of course, and again, with how Vin Diesel really treats this thing as a pride and joy because this is like essentially the only franchise he's been a part of outside of Marvel. Because, well, this is the only franchise he's been a part of that has been, extremely well, outside like maybe Riddick and Marvel. But Marvel's a different story because Marvel has been, Marvel is like the MCU is its own machine.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a franchise that he's been working on for like the past 20 years, like the same thing with Riddick. But with Riddick, that's like been off and on projects. The last movie didn't do that well, even though it did somewhat well to become like a cult classic. Here, like the same thing with Triple X, where it's just like he does like return to these properties after a couple, like maybe just to see if these people still, enjoy watching these movies. But from a fan standpoint, I mean, from a film goer standpoint, his love is for this series, and I don't think he wants the series to end.
Mm-hmm.
Either out of respect for the characters, or just out of respect for the fact that of the fans really. Mm-hmm. A lot of this time when he does go on Instagram and talks about these movies, he does talk about the fans and he talks about the family he gets from doing these films. And I honestly think the reason why he keeps on doing this is because he thoroughly enjoys these films. But the problem is there's a line between just doing these movies for enjoying these movies, and then there's a line to saying, hey, I can enjoy these movies, working on these movies, but I'm also gotta be, I gotta be producer guy here on this one. I also gotta be actor guy on this one. So basically saying, hey, I can enjoy this on personal time, even during when scenes are being, reset or something like that. I'm just saying, oh man, I just can't believe I'm doing this. And then suddenly it's like, okay, time to put on my business face as producer, or put on my game face as actor.
Yeah, I think like what you just said too kind of really tells why this franchise has managed to like continue on forward as long as it does. Because I think Vin really does need it to go on because of, like you were saying, like that idea of family. Yeah. Because I think for him this does feel like a family, and I think that is something from what I've seen. I think he does need something like that. Because the way he was like trying to like beg Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and almost in a kind of manipulative way too, trying to get him back to come to Fast 10. But I think deep down in his own way, he does want family like that, and I just think he also gets in his own way sometimes. We're trying to get that because I don't think he realizes he's getting in his own way of doing that. But then it's also why he has also maintained the consistency of the series going for so long. Yeah. Because he needs that to kind of he needs the fans and the films to take the place of what probably is a void, it seems like. Yeah. The more you kind of discuss it. And the fact that the idea of family has become such a meme so much from the movies now at this point too. Like, it is really telling.
And also, it goes back to an earlier point where I was saying, I think it also has to do with the untimely passing of Paul Walker as well, where it's just like, I think they had a lot of ideas going forward with where to go with Bryan, and maybe with past 7, where it goes into a point where the last movie ends, spoiler alert, Brian's car coming up to the family house, or whatever, basically wherever Ben Diesel's character lives, and then that's the way the movie ends. You know, it's not really a big spoiler, but you know, it's basically alluding to the fact that Brian, even though even though the character's still alive, even though the actor playing the character unfortunately passed away, the character is still alive. So they could easily just say, it's maybe it's someone who's just driving Brian's car. You know, he probably.
Well, they were also using Paul Walker's like brother.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was a twin, but like basically they're using his brother in place for a lot of shots too. Like they did it for the end of Fast 6, I believe it was.
No,
And then
Fast.
I think they even, I think they maintained that for a couple other of the Fast movies where you see him for like just a little bit of time.
Yeah, and obviously, if the plan was, if the plan by Fast 10 was to bring back Brian after a couple of movies, that would make sense. But because of what happened with Paul Walker, it's just like, are they really gonna bring back a character who is still alive in the movies, but the actor is dead? And it's like, it's definitely, I can understand why.
I mean, given how ridiculous this franchise has gotten, I wouldn't be surprised that they went with a very soap opera-y route and then just casted someone who looked kind of close enough and just be like, hey, Brian, you look a little different. Yeah, I had to get some plastic surgery so I could, hide out from this next big bad villain right behind me.
Yes. And it's weird because the movies has also tried to make a new Brian like happen every so often, where it's just like, in Fast Tokyo Drift it happened to be like a new Brian type, where it's just like it's like this new kid, like this American kid going to Tokyo and oh, excuse me. Okay. New kid going to Tokyo and becoming engrossed with this street culture of street racing and whatnot. And then, of course, when they brought back Paul Walker, it's like, oh no, we don't need that character. Well, not until like the later films, obviously, because they need to tie into every single movie of these movies. And then I forgot which one it was. I believe it was like maybe Fast 7, where it's like, oh, they have Scott Eastwood playing another Brian type of character. So maybe they bring back that character for the next movie. Nope, they do not bring back that character. They just bring back his boss, played by the great Kurt Russell, still hamming it up. And then it's like, I think it just gets to a point where it's just like, they have this notion of, okay, we have this void. We really miss Paul Walker, but we just can't really do these movies without with Paul Walker. And I think that's the problem. Is just that, there are some characters that need to essentially be put away, retired, because of, either someone has unfortunately passed away, or someone is just like having a big fight in terms of with the studios, and they are, and obviously they can't really use it because it's like, this stuff between Lin and Diesel is like, I feel like it's nothing new, and I feel like now is just like with Fast 10, it's just like, it's just essentially just blown up into essentially, hey, there are bigger problems than just the story. I think it's also probably bigger problems with just how production is just for these films alone.
Mm-hmm.
Especially creative directions as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, in summary, Fast 10 is probably going to be a mess.
And it all had to do because of family. Or as Vin Diesel says, family. And speaking of family, Paramount. An odd segue, but yes. And I say it's an odd segue because there's two things happening on the Paramount front. So if this episode decides to get blocked, you now know why.
Yep. Cough, CBS cough.
Yeah. So there's two stories revolving around Paramount. One I'll lead to the second part in a few minutes, but especially since Hayden could probably explain a lot more better than me. So anyone who isn't anyone online probably follows the account every single SpongeBob episode frame in order, or I think it's like every single SpongeBob episode frame in order or something like that. But it's basically every single frame of a SpongeBob episode in order, right? And the team behind that essentially saying, hey, we created a great loving community. People who love, people just love SpongeBob. People would always react to probably a specific frame, especially if it becomes like a meme frame, like Patrick hiding on top of the ceiling. It's like, or or something like that, right? And
I love that one.
Yeah, and the ideology is like, okay, we have a great community. Why don't we just do something for all of us SpongeBob? And they basically said, okay, I think what they did was basically for the past like maybe a year and a half was redrawn, reanimate, and revoice the SpongeBob movie, right? And they basically called it like the SpongeBob movie rehydrated or something like that. I think that's the official title, right?
Oh, you mean the? Oh wait, do you mean the video game?
No. It's basically a redrawn, reanimated, and redubbed version of the SpongeBob movie that came out like 10, 20, not 20 years.
Like okay, like that first SpongeBob movie, the really good one. Because it's funny you said rehydrated, because there literally was a remaster of SpongeBob and Bikini Bottom, but they called it, but they added rehydrated in the title as well. So I kind of thought maybe that's okay, but I didn't know they called it rehydrated. Okay, anyway.
Anyway, so what happened was that like maybe 30 minutes into the premiere on YouTube, the stream just stops working, and they find out that Paramount had put a block on it because of vague guidelines of fair use or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, even though it's now back online and people can watch it, it got up to a very vocal community into not only that, people who were supporting the product, but especially since this is like, I believe, a year and a half of people who were putting in their time and effort to essentially redrawn and reanimate the entire movie by hand or by computer or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And also redub it as well with their own voice actors. And then suddenly it's like, 3 minutes into the project, into this project premiering, it's offline because Paramount decides to put a kibosh on it. And yeah, it's an odd story what is happening, but it's also kind of related, and it's also, but it is related to a story that Hayden actually pitched me like last week, but I forgot to actually mention it until this thing happened. So I was like, this is a great way to actually talk about the problem with Paramount and essentially having their IPs essentially reviewed or just talked about, discussed about what happened. So Hayden, take it away while I have to I gotta all
right, no worries. So I'll be kind of taking over. So basically, to kind of follow up with what Paramount and CBS have been doing. So Paramount Plus has been, they've been airing new episodes of their new Halo show based off of the very popular Halo video game series. And spoilers, it's not as good. But really, that's not the biggest issue, because the bigger issue is the fact that one of the channels I watch, who they'll do reviews for the show, and I think they're pretty fair. They get a little exaggerated, but they are fair. The Angry Joe Show. And like I saw the first episode review. Yeah, it was a decent review. Got like a 6 out of 10 on their scale, and that's pretty good, if I remember right. And then the next episode, like episode 2, it was a pretty lower score. So I'm like, yeah, given what was mentioned, that's fair. But then later found out that that actually put a copyright claim on that video. Why that one? Well, seems pretty obvious that because the review was bad, because they didn't copyright claim their review for the first episode, just the second episode. And then they managed to work it out and they got their, video back up. But they also but I think they managed to get their video up and then ended up putting out a second one, kind of like with a little intro, kind of summarizing what was going on that led to that. So then they reviewed a third episode. No problems there. All good. CBS isn't even touching it now until they get to the fourth episode, where CBS, I kid you not, blocked their video 5 times. 5 times. They blocked their review of episode 4. And here's the pattern. Their review for episode 4 was a lower review, and it was fair. It deserved it. But because CBS clearly didn't like that, they put a copyright claim on it. And it's so ridiculous because they only see that with the ones who are giving the, I guess you would call them negative reviews, but I wouldn't say it's negative, because if your content isn't, as good as it could be, then you're going to get called out on it, as you should be, because CBS also in particular has not been doing well with their shows. I mean, my lord, just look at Picard. I mean, if you want to look at a beloved IP just getting destroyed in front of your face because of people who don't understand what made the originals so fantastic. Because in the originals, they knew how to talk about sensitive subject matters and show every viewpoint, but still make it clear which one is the one that actually makes more sense. And then now you get, Picard, where it's no, we're just gonna preach in your face, which by the way is a shitty way to do it. So it's just very clear that Paramount and CBS, it's they don't have good content coming out nowadays.
No,
and they are scared. They are really scared. So I think that's why they've been blocking as much as they could have, any negativity of the Halo show.
Yeah.
And also, and it's not just that Angry Joe channel I mentioned. There were other channels who also got that same, who had to face that same kind of BS.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, this is not the first time we've seen stuff like this.
Oh, no.
This kind of thing started back in 2020 when there were leaks for Last of Us Part 2, and then they went literally scorched earth on anyone who even mentioned it at all, trying to copyright claim everything they could just for people talking about it. And I get you don't want your game spoiled, but come on, you're literally gonna manually go yourself and copyright claim, because sometimes a lot of these companies have other subsidiary kind of companies or whatever that'll kind of do that stuff for them. But in that case, it was actually Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog themselves doing it.
Yeah.
But honestly, once that happened, I'm yeah, this opened the floodgates. Now we're going to get other people abusing fair use. Because it's not going to be the people who are reviewing it who are abusing fair use. It's going to be the companies abusing the fair use system as much as they can, abusing the YouTube system and so forth.
Yeah, and the YouTube system is literally a what's the term? Basically, you put your video online, right? And you upload it, have it, you have it uploaded, and then you go into your next, your checks and balances, and if your thing is flagged, it won't be submitted. A great example of this is one of my favorite YouTube channels, Dead Meat, right? James A.C. Janice does kill counts, right? He reviews horror movies and counts the kills, but also reviews them as well as giving you great behind the scenes stuff as well. And he has talked, he has talked lengthily about the type of stuff he has done in the past, where he had to fight essentially not only copyright claims and stuff like that too over movies that essentially got essentially deleted from his channel, and then said and then reinstated onto his channel because of saying, okay, we understand this is just a review and not something like like an 8-hour video of something the same thing of where it's just like essentially an 8-hour video of random show clips or something like that, random episodes. And of course, go on YouTube and you go like maybe write in like old cartoons, you probably find live streams are the same thing of just like old cartoons just being played and whatnot. Warner Brothers cartoons and whatnot. And of course, no one really stops that because it's under probably the fair use thing, right? But there are companies that decide to say, hey, we rather not have people have fun or not take not have fun, but at the same time, we just can't take the criticism over some of our products, especially if it's a show where it basically doesn't follow like a lore or something like that, and yeah, it's hard to be a person just wanting to watch a show like, say, like the new Game of Thrones coming out, right? Game of Thrones, like, what was it? Like Realm of the Dragon or Throne of the Dragon, whatever they're calling it, right? Mm-hmm. Or watching the new Lord of the Rings Amazon show and deciding to say, okay, you know what? I'm gonna watch the first episode and review it. I'm not gonna show any videos of it, right? I'm only gonna show like maybe stills from the show. Sure enough, the person who watches such show will probably get flagged because of saying, oh, by the way, you can't do this because you're violating copyright right or what have you.
Mm-hmm. So, hey, wonder if CBS is going to try to block this now.
Yeah, if it is, it's been good, nice knowing you, folks.
and I'll say this while we can. CBS, get better writers. Seriously.
Yeah. I do think that's some of the best. I do, and it's weird because I was just watching The Offer with my father like maybe a few days ago, and we were enjoying it because it actually felt like a nice series that probably would have been at home on like CBS, or maybe one of their primetime networks that's on like cable, something like that. But for some reason, it's like I think that's the problem too. CBS now, like for the most part, really does cater towards the old crowd. People in their like 50s or 60s, something like that.
Well, you can tell too that they're very much an old crowd type. Because like I was saying with Picard, it's like all you gotta do is look at how they write because it's like this is what they think the younger audience will like, but it's the most pandering BS. Instead of actually looking at what made original Star Trek show so great because of how they actually effectively tackled so many difficult subject matters. And in this show, they don't even know how to do that. They just pander instead of actually like addressing the real issues.
Which is odd because my father actually watches not only Disco but also Picard as well. I can't say STD because and
STD.
Yes, Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, Discovery. Okay, because you say STD, and I'm like, wait, what now?
So
what kind of Star Trek show is
this? So a running gag into in the Star Trek community was calling the Discovery STD for short. But then people are like, you know what? Let's call it Disco because Disco just sounds funnier to say, hey, I'm watching Disco. Or Star Trek Disco and not think of, Star Trek. When you say Star Trek Disco, people will realize, like, the first movie? Because technically speaking, the first motion picture does have a scene where Bones actually does come up, looked like he's coming from a disco era, swingers convention or something like that. Because he has got the beard, he's got the bell bottoms and stuff like that too. It just looks like he's been dancing all night. But seriously, my father watches the Star Trek Discovery. He's been enjoying it. He's been watching the second season. He's been watching Picard because he loved the first season. Loved it so much that we got it on not Blu-ray, well, Blu-ray, DVD, whatever it's called, like one of those box sets thing.
Yeah.
And he's been watching the second season already, as it's premiering. Well, not as it's premiering, but as I'm watching it, it's fairly confusing, especially when you're just watching it as a regular fan, because I haven't watched Star Trek in ages, right? Because I tried watching Discovery and I gave up like after the first couple of episodes because it just felt like so not Trek. And I think that was the problem with that problem is that the first season did not feel like Trek at all. It felt like people thinking of what Star Trek could be. And then the second season introduces, Captain Pike. And from what I've been seeing of season 2, it actually feels a little more like Star Trek than the first season did. But with Picard, it's like they're just like shoehorning in like a random scene. Hang on for a second.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just continue on. Yeah. So yeah, it's like Star Trek Picard. It feels like the type of show where even if you've never watched any Star Trek, or if you've been a fan of Star Trek for so long, or you're somewhere in the middle, it doesn't matter where you are in that spectrum, because Picard is going to feel the same. Like it's a show that has lost the plot so much. That honestly, I feel like could really just sum up all of season 2 from what they've done so far. Like, they should have done the Disney route. Just do fewer episodes, probably.
All right, I'm sorry about that, folks.
Good. I was just talking about how we're going to take over the show.
Oh, yes. So, but seriously, there is... I do think that whenever Paramount hears an inkling of criticism, right? They just said, okay, no, just block it. Viacom, whatever, Viacom just blocks it, right? Mm-hmm. Which I wouldn't be surprised if this happens to this episode as well. Whereas it's like I'm premiering this, I'm like uploading everything, and then suddenly it's like blocked on over the, and then I have to go and figure out how to cut out essentially our entire discussion about Paramount. And
like literally, instead of like FBI storming your door, you're just gonna like a loud knock, dun dun dun, CBS, open it up.
Essentially, yes. And yeah, it's obviously one of those type of things where it's just like CBS doesn't seem to be like the type of people that takes criticism. Like a great like there are studios that do take criticism and kind of run with it, right? And then there are studios that is like, okay, we just can't take the criticism and decide to block anybody talking about, about this stuff.
Honestly, I feel like that is such a great point with all this too. Like, especially with a lot of creators, I feel like I've seen in the past few years that people just cannot take criticism. Like, it's only their way or the highway kind of thing. And it's like, first off, creating content, creating stuff like this, it's a collaborative effort. It's like, I don't want to get into details of the script series I've been writing, but that's why I love having these weekly readings where we get to actually discuss it afterwards, because yeah, there's what I think of the story, but someone's going to think of something that I wouldn't have thought of. And that'll be good for me to hear, because then I'll think about that and like, okay, that's a good point. So I'll see how I can work that in. So yeah, so it so that way it does make it more collaborative, because it has to be. Creating this stuff has to be a collaborative effort. And these approaches that I'm seeing from the way these shows seem to be written, and just from the responses that these people essentially give by blocking reviews of their content, just shows that they don't care.
Oh no.
About like what you have to say, pretty much. Well, they do care if it's good. If they don't like it, they care to a different degree. They care in the sense that they're going to make sure no one can hear what you have to say on it.
Yeah. And the problem is that, this has been going on for the past even more than a decade or so, where it's just like,
it's just now become more standard practice, it seems like now.
Yeah, you mentioned Angry Joe, and Angry Joe is part of Channel Awesome, and they have a whole history about this stuff, not only about getting episodes claimed and stuff like that too, but just like from a practical standpoint of just like, hey, I got, like to think,
Well, yeah, well, that same point too about like that creative like inability to listen to feedback and criticism. That does also apply to a lot of the Channel Awesome people.
Yeah.
Not just them, their videos getting claimed. I wouldn't be surprised if it has, but very much that idea of like, yeah, there's it's very clear that the people who are basically the bosses of what goes on there are more concerned with getting their stuff out and don't want to hear any negative feedback, any criticism whatsoever.
But it just boggles my mind is that you take essentially maybe 1 week or maybe 2 weeks of just crafting like a 20-minute episode or something like that, and then suddenly it's like gone in a blink of a eye because it's been claimed, and it won't be not claimed until probably maybe never or what have you. And then there's this episode of yours that cannot be watched because it's on YouTube, and that's why people go to other platforms to do that. And sure enough, when people watch it on a different platform, it doesn't probably get the amount of views they want.
Mm-hmm.
But switching over to another Paramount adjacent product, so Marvel. So oddly enough, or weirdly enough, the last Marvel movie that was produced by or produced and distributed by Paramount, the Avengers actually celebrated its 10th year anniversary, which is amazing to know considering how far the MCU has gotten.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, thinking about 10 years ago, where it's just like, oh, in 10 years we'll probably have another Avengers movie. Well, apparently we've gotten like 3 other Avengers movies. Well, 4 if you count Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
But from a great milestone it is, I guess, to celebrate that, Marvel is releasing, you guessed it, Multiverse of Madness this week. And surprisingly, it's got a top box office. Like, no surprise.
Oh yeah, no question.
Even if it's being restricted or blocked or what have you in different countries or something like that, it's obviously got to be number 1 in the box office.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like this is a movie where it's like, all you gotta do is just look here in America. People are gonna see it. Like some people saw Spider-Man like 3, 4, 5 times. We're gonna see that same amount with Doctor Strange into Multiverse of Madness, and it's gonna be for a lot of the similar reasons why too, because it's like we do expect a lot of characters we've seen in the past to come back, but also a lot of fun cameos with new characters.
Not only that, it's a Sam Raimi movie too, because Sam Raimi hasn't directed a movie since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with Oz the Great and Powerful, which he felt was like it wasn't like his best film. Well, I mean, I don't think not best film. He has directed since then, with Evil Dead, with the Evil Dead, Ash versus the Evil Dead, but he hasn't directed the film since essentially that. So he hasn't essentially directed in like almost 10 years or so. And this is basically his return to form. And from what I've been reading, a lot of people have been saying, "Oh wow, Sam Raimi still has it." And from what I've been hearing, especially about Elizabeth Olsen, is that he basically has made her into almost a frightening figure in the movie, where it's just like, okay, we honestly expected, Scarlet Witch to be a frightening figure, right? But to have that balance of her being the most frightening figure in that movie is actually interesting.
That is honestly so fantastic.
Because they've been praising not only, Sam Raimi's direction, they've also been praising, Elizabeth Olsen, but they have been saying that Liz Olsen is probably going to be in one of the most bloodiest Marvel scenes ever in like history. Well, not in history. Obviously, it's a little hard to beat Daredevil.
As bloody as you can get with Disney, with a Disney product that's going to be PG-13.
Especially since a lot of people thought this was going to be going into R-rated territory, because one, Sam Raimi. Two, Sam Raimi has a history in horror. Three, going forward because of with the R-rated products like Deadpool being announced, Blade, stuff like that too.
And also just looking at the trailer, like some of those scenes, like so just visually disturbing they look sometimes. Yeah. Like when they go through that one, not almost like the opposite of the mirror dimension, where it looks like Doctor Strange's face just getting like, I don't even know how to describe it.
Cubed,
yeah, essentially. And then like that one look where it kind of just does this almost uncomfortable, intense close up right into Elizabeth Olsen's eye, and then but on the part of her face that looks different.
Yeah, like, because there's like blood,
maybe, or something, or like bloody. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like blood around her eyes and hair and stuff like that too. Because from what I'm hearing, Sam Raimi essentially like there's that famous scene in Spider-Man 2 where Doc Ock is waking up and it basically kills essentially an ER his ER team trying to wake him up and sort of salvage this thing. Apparently, there is a scene in this movie that rivals that scene.
Oh dang!
And that is saying something, considering Sam Raimi is a guy who has made a career in making great horror movies. Not only on the comedic side, but when he has to do the horror effect, oh my god, it is like horrific.
Yeah, like literally the woman, like you just when she's getting pulled by one of the Doc Ock's like metal tentacles, and you just like see and hear her fingernails just scraping on that hard floor. Like I know it probably wasn't actually happening, but just like the look and sound, like oh man, like just and then it's like you can just see like just the utter fear in everyone's faces because you're watching it from their perspective as just this, yeah. And he's good even at just like on really like just simple ways of making you feel horror. Like in Spider-Man 1, when Green Goblin takes Spider-Man and just tosses him into that like abandoned, rundown building filled with like overgrown like shrubbery and whatnot. And I remember watching that as a kid, and I felt so scared that Spider-Man was gonna get killed because like there's like no music. You just hear the sounds of the punches. You see like Spider-Man's face. It looks like bloody. His mask is just torn from the pumpkin bomb, literally blowing up pretty much right in his face. And just the sounds Tobey Maguire makes as he's getting punched and like just thrown around. Like it just sounds. He just does a good job of making it sound visceral.
Yes.
So yeah, like I'm definitely like. I was definitely intrigued with how this movie was going to be, but it sounds like it's going to be even better than I was hoping. And I'm definitely going to try and see this before we do our next podcast. Hopefully
in the next week or two or something.
Yeah. Well, what I can do is just go on a Monday when there's probably going to be nobody there. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But my cat.
I forgot Sophie was a white cat. But yeah, from what I've been getting from both, reading from both reviews from like critics and stuff like that, and then also fan people who have been who's been watching it, it has been nothing but praise for Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda, but also more praise to Sam Raimi as well. And they said that Wanda has like one of the most horrific scenes in the movie because it does prey on Raimi's talents as a horror director. So yeah, as we could tell, as you probably all could tell, we're both hyped for Multiverse of Madness for more ways than one. I'm just hyped to see Sam Raimi in a Marvel movie for God knows how long. Close to maybe 15 years. 2007. Yeah, close to 15 years.
Oh, good.
Is Sophie meowing?
Yeah, she's purring.
Okay, I heard her. Maybe that's how we should end the episode right there. No.
Yeah, just like, hey Sophie, look over here.
Now, before we do end this episode, we do have something to bring back. So a few months ago, we kind of did this, and then we kind of like stopped because Hayden was kind of like burnt out on recommendations, because the last time he recommended something that backfiring.
Oh
so
yeah, I regret that one now.
Yes, but we're bringing it back. Hopefully this time with actual purpose. So my recommendation of the week is, well, I have two recommendations of the week. One, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and also Barry, the TV show Barry.
Honestly, yeah, I'm gonna borrow that recommendation as well. Barry has been amazing. Like after seeing that second episode, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be a fun direction if it's going where I think it is.
Especially, yeah, go ahead.
But then also Better Call Saul.
Oh, which I haven't really watched yet because of I'm still at the end of season 2, and also the fact that I had to go and watch Barry because Barry was coming back on, and I was like, I need to watch this show. So it was like,
yeah.
But I'll probably get back to Better Call Saul in a little bit. Oh my god. I should just make that the thumbnail if I can.
Honestly, yeah, try.
But yeah, Barry has been great to watch, specifically since Bill Hader and Alec Berg, who write the show and create the show, they've been crafting a great. I'm sorry, it's like Sophie just yawned, and then it's like there's this no. There's like this void of just like nothingness in her mouth as she was just yawning.
Yeah, because like I got a purple background, so it blended in perfectly with like the inner color of her mouth and tongue.
Yeah, so I was like, what the hell? But yeah, the show has been off to a great start, specifically since Barry last season. You could tell that he was trying to do good. Now they're just showing, okay, hey, doing good wasn't doing good for him. He's got to be evil.
Yep.
And that slowly descent into evil is just amazing to watch. It's even more amazing to watch with Bill Hader, just like commanding each performance. And it's like you just said before, that final scene of episode 2. Oh my god.
Exactly. Like just the way they framed it, that intense close up on him and Henry Winkler, when it kind of cuts back between both of them.
And it's those final lines too, where it's just like it just shows you Barry's frame of mind as well. Especially since the first episode does show his like cracks and whatnot. And I love the fact that this season's arc seems to be about forgiveness, and I honestly can't wait to. I honestly hope that they do have an episode where Barry does actually go to church and has that almost like Eddie Brock scene of him just like cursing to God or something like that, or because I honestly do see that scene actually happening as Barry just going into a church, yelling at God or yelling at. Well, not yelling, but having some sort of confession with a priest, even if he does kill the priest afterwards, or even if he doesn't kill the priest afterwards. But I honestly do see that scene of Barry going into a church and just basically having a heart-to-heart with either God or a priest, just to talk, just to say, hey, I have all these things was.
Mm-hmm.
And another great reason to watch the show is just Stephen Root, where it's just his character of just Fuchs is just like, he is just so evil, and yet you just want to root for him because it's like, it's hard to root for a bad guy when it's just like, oh, hey, I'm the bad guy,
It's like he's as manipulative as Walter White from Breaking Bad, but Fuchs is 10 times the coward Walt ever was in the show. And that's what really makes it interesting too.
And
also it's just like that fun juxtaposition we get in season 2, episode 5, I think it is. The episode that feels the most like a Coen Brothers piece, essentially. Where it's like we kind of see this dreamlike image of Barry returning from war, and everyone is being greeted by people they love, and who's the only person there to greet Barry? Fuchs.
I mean, yeah. And I'll get back to Better Call Saul because I do want to finish the second season and go on to the third season. Hopefully, hopefully finish the third season by the end of the week. But there is something called Moon Knight and Doctor Strange happening at the same time, so it's like. Mm-hmm. And also, watching Barry as well. So it's like, so yeah.
And there's one more thing too, like I'm noticing with Barry's season 3 that I think is going to be interesting. They're going to touch on with oh God, I am blanking on her name. The woman who's like Barry's girlfriend now.
Sarah, Shelley. It begins with
you know who I'm talking about at least. Yeah. If you know the show, you know who I'm talking about. But I'm noticing a very interesting thing here that they kind of start off the episode with, and then how they end how the last conversation of the episode between Barry and her ends. It's like, okay, yeah, I see what they're going to be going with here, and this is going to be really interesting if they really follow through with it here.
Sally, there we go.
Sally.
Yes.
But yeah. It's like how the episode started with her. And then how she was kind of talking about a scene and a certain kind of subject matter with it. And then the way her last conversation in episode 2 of season 3 with Barry, it's like, okay, yeah, she was speaking from experience. She's done this plenty of times before, and she's doing it again. And it's like you can see this time she realizes she's doing it too, I think. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting how that's going to play out too now.
Yeah, specifically since, Sally was a character that seemed to be so unlikable in season 2, and now she's starting to become like, okay, maybe it's, try and like her at least somewhat in season 3.
I wouldn't say it was so much that she was unlikable. I would say it's more like her character wants to make it big, and she wants to like do it her way, but the problem is she's had to like alter herself because it's like she can only choose one or the other. She can either be authentic or make it big, essentially. And she chose make it big.
Now, we both agree on Barry, and I probably agree on Better Call Saul, but again, I'm like a few seasons behind. But do you have any movies that you have recommendations, or is it just like this week, all TV shows, man?
I mean, yeah, all TV shows. Like, I haven't seen a whole lot of movies I haven't seen Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, but I wouldn't be like, honestly, it's a Nicolas Cage movie. It's going to be fun to watch, and it honestly sounds pretty good anyway. And from what you said, it sounds like it's good to watch. So, and also I've been watching Perks of Being a Wallflower again because of a certain read coming up in a different group.
Yeah.
So I'm watching that again, and man, it honestly, every time I watch it, it's like it
really hits you. Yeah,
it really does.
Oh my god.
It's one of those movies where it makes you cringe because of how relatable and real it is, but also makes you want to cry because of how real and relatable a lot of it is too. No movie has ever been able to really touch on something like that to make you feel both of those things in one movie.
Yeah, and like the last time I watched it was maybe around 2013, 14, around that area. So it has been like a while. Yeah, and I remember enjoying that movie as well, but it's weird because of what's been happening with Ezra Miller. It's like it kind of does put a little a little like happenstance of watching the film, but at the same time, I love the cast in it too. Where it's just like everybody in that cast is well-rounded and well-rounded, also well-casted as well.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It is one of those things where it's like there are actors who do a lot of crappy stuff in their personal lives, but then it's like they are, unfortunately, they are good actors and they do have good content. And also at the same time, it's like there are other good people in that content too that they're in that does make it worth watching.
Yeah.
And because honestly, I don't think they could have casted a better person to play Patrick, in my opinion. From what he delivers, it is a fantastic performance.
Yeah.
And crap, I was gonna say something else now. I've forgotten because now Sophie is back to being distracting. Literally trying to sit on my laptop keyboard, pretty much.
I know. Well, we're almost out of time, folks. So that was our recommendations of the week. In truth, I have essentially three recommendations. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with Nicolas Cage. It's a new movie. Barry, but also Moon Knight. So Moon Knight has been incredible. Hayden's recommendations of the week is basically Better Call Saul and Barry as well. And also Perks of Burry and the Wallflower as well. Even though that's still a movie, but anyway.
Hey, good movie's a good movie. And you know what? It's new on HBO Max.
There you go.
So hey, that's something.
And on that note, take care, buddy, and please be safe and be well. Peace.
Peace.